Hello and welcome to another episode of Trip 101 Travel Talk series. I'm Ananya, a junior content manager with Trip 101. And today I'm very pleased to welcome Chiara over here. We're going to talk about the city of Nice, to which Chiara is not just a traveler, but also she lived over there for quite some time. So I'm very pleased to welcome you, Chiara. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much, Ananya. My pleasure.
Kiara, before we get talking on about Paris, which is a very exciting destination and it's on the bucket list of almost every traveler, I'd like to know more about you. I know you lived in Paris for a bit, but tell me about yourself, where you're from, what do you do, and introduce yourself as a traveler to us, please.
Awesome, great, thank you. So my name is Chiara. I am half French, half American. My dad is French and my mom is American. I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I lived there for a long time. I then lived in Paris, as you mentioned, and then a few other countries such as the United States and Panama. And I went back to France, but in Lyon, another city. But I love being part French as well. That's a culture I really love. So that's part of me. I am currently an interpreter and translator. I interpret English to French or Spanish, or it goes all those ways with those three languages. And yeah, I'm an aspiring globetrotter. I wish to travel the world one day. Yeah.
And you have quite a diverse sort of like from your parents, and then you've moved around quite a few countries. You've seen a lot of the world already.
Part of it,
So
I'm missing a bunch, but yes. Yeah.
yeah, after coming to the destination that we're going to talk about today, Paris. So you were telling me that how you've lived a few over the years over there, and then you visit it almost every year. How
Yes.
familiar are you with Paris? Tell me more about the time that you've spent over there.
For sure. Definitely. I've been going to Paris probably every year, maybe twice a year sometimes, or once a year. It's a city I love. I know there's a stereotype that Parisians are a little bit arrogant or maybe too stuck up in their ways, but I don't think that's the case. I think that's just a stereotype. But once you really get to Paris, you see a mix of people from around the world. So, really open minded people, food from all around the world. When you think food from Paris, you don't think French food necessarily. You just think food from anywhere because it's a big city with people from around the world. There's museums. The museums are amazing. Honestly, there's modern art, industrial type museums and expositions, as well as the parks. That's something I never want to miss when I go. A lot of people skip over that to go to Galerie Lafayette or things like that, like the big shopping centers. But the parks are amazing. The Garden of the Tuileries, that's a really pretty place to go just to spend your day. There's just a bunch of places like that. And yes, of course, shopping as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting destination that I think has a lot for every type of traveler, for sure.
Yes.
If you have to describe Paris to someone, tell someone about the location, what would you say to them? What kind of city is it?
A multicultural, huge city, a lot of fashion, open mindedness, people from around the world. You never get bored. You could probably get lost, but no. Yeah.
And that's saying the one who has been there almost 20 times. So you have never been bored in Paris.
I'm bored when I'm at my family's house sometimes in Paris, definitely. But when I'm out, there's always something to do. Yeah, definitely.
And how many, I'm sure over these multiple visits, you've seen Paris in its various seasons, in its various different weathers. Which one is your favorite time to go to Paris?
I usually go around spring or summertime, but that's also just to see some people that would be busy if it were in that time. My favorite time to go, I would say it's probably fall because I just love fall in general. And there's so many trees. So there's a lot of dead leaves on the floor. I think the orangish color of the leaves is just beautiful. You see that really everywhere. People are dressed up in a more wintry way. I love that. I love like the little scarves or the little coats. I don't know. I think that the city looks pretty. It gets maybe a little bit darker earlier, but the sunsets are beautiful. Overall, my favorite season. But when I go in spring, I love spring as well. Summer, I wouldn't recommend it because it's it gets really hot sometimes. It gets really hot, almost unbearable. So spring or fall.
Okay. The spring would be around April or India.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. March, April, even May, but after May, it would get really hot. And then in the fall, around like mid September's, it's still a little hot. October or November.
Travelers should definitely aim to go either in spring or in the fall season.
Yes, yeah. And you're also gonna skip that whole wave of tourists who are definitely gonna be going in the summertime.
Yeah, for sure. And let's talk a little bit about what all is there to see in Paris. I'm sure you're all exposed to a lot of the films and TV shows which talk about the beautiful monuments. But I want to know what are your personal favorites if you have to suggest to your friends. What would you tell them?
I would say, as far as like a monument, obviously the Eiffel Tower, if they've never been to Paris, I feel like everybody wants to see that. But some of my friends wouldn't. I would tell them the Arc de Triomphe, so the Arch of Triumph. I'm not sure how you translate that, but yes, that arch. I think that's really pretty. It's small, and right next to it, you can go up, and it actually isn't that small, I guess, from up on top of it. You have a really pretty view of Paris. You're in the middle of a roundabout, so you just see all these different streets. Right next to it is the Champs Elysees. And there you have just a bunch of little stores, just a big avenue with a bunch of lights connecting to a park, speaking of parks. But besides that, as far as other places, a museum, I like the Centre Pompidou, the Pompidou Museum. It's a colorful museum on the outside. It looks really different. And on the inside, you have a bunch of art, a lot of paintings, different things, as well as the Musée d'Orsay. That's a really popular museum. You have a lot of Claude Monet there. Just, it's like the MoMA, New York, but in Paris. It's really nice. Yeah, it's the Modern Art Museum. Those two are the ones I enjoy the most. I like museums, and especially because since I'm currently studying, students have discounts when they go. You should always take advantage of that. If you're going to Paris, take your student card. When I have it, I go most to the museum. If not, it can get expensive.
Yeah, for travelers who are visiting, how many days should they stay in the city? What would be a good number of days for them to be able to see all the spots and experience a little bit of that Parisian vibe?
Definitely. I have two answers because a lot of people who are traveling, at least from experience, the people I've heard of that travel within Europe to Paris, they tend to stay about 2 to 3 days. Personally, 2 to 3 days was enough. But if it's your first time in Paris and you want to really immerse yourself in Paris, I would probably say to stay like a week. Like that, you can go to different areas in Paris, like Le Marais. It's a really pretty area popping right now or trending, you could say. But if you want to go every day to somewhere different in Paris and really get to know the catacombs or things like that, yeah, you should definitely stay about a week.
Yeah. Paris is also famous for its cafes. Do you have any favorite spots of yours that you would really recommend people to try out?
I would say somewhere in the ninth arrondissement. I don't, the district, the ninth district. There's a lot of cute cafes as well as the 13th or the 14th district. I don't really have a cafe in mind, but I'm just saying really cute areas where it's nice to have a coffee out. That's generally where I do. And I would say just anywhere following the Seine, you'll probably find something really cute. But personally, I don't. I go somewhere that's on the outer skirts of Paris because that's where I have family.
Okay. But one could walk around the more popular districts, the nine district you mentioned. They would be able to spot a cute cafe, some coffee, maybe a little pastry or something, and then
Definitely.
hop over to another park or monument that they can find nearby.
Yeah, exactly. And I was also mentioning the Marais. I think that's the 13th. So that would be one of the areas that I would keep in mind because it's just so colorful. There's a lot of little boutiques. Even after COVID, a lot of people did stay in that area to sell like independent jewelry or like little cute things. So over there, you definitely have cute cafes as well. Yeah.
Mm. What about places that young people would enjoy? Which district would it be that would appeal to young travelers?
I would probably around the l'Opéra of Paris, the opera house. think it's the 7th, I'm not sure. But around there, there's a cute avenue, walking avenue a little bit behind the opera house that has cute things that you can do, like restaurants, bars. There's a club called the Buddha Bar. It's a really popular club. They have one in Monaco as well, in Monte Carlo, and also have one in Paris. It's a bit expensive, but it's nice. And I would probably say to stick around like Place Vendôme, which isn't too far from les Champs-Élysées, the really popular avenue that has a bunch of stores. Place Vendôme next to it has bars, restaurant. Yeah, and Chinatown also has some fun stuff. Yeah, there's really a bunch of places. Yeah.
Plenty of options.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Priya, you were telling me a bit about how you like to go to the parks. You mentioned Toulouse, which would be the other ones in Paris? Because honestly, when I think of Paris, I don't really think of parks. So I'm really curious
Right.
about that.
Definitely. There's a lot of places called bois, so they're like little woods, but they're not woods. They're just like little woods. So one is near Versailles. There's a really not too nice part of the park, but there's a really pretty part of the park called Bois de Boulogne. And there's a lot of times fairs at that park. And there is a really nice park. I used to live near somewhere called Bois de Vincennes. So it's like the woods of Vincennes. And they're also really nice. It's like just a giant park because it's not really woods. You don't really see all these. In the Bois de Boulogne, you might see a bit more trees like that scattered around, but you still have places to walk through. Or in the Bois de Vincennes, you have little lakes, little places to sit. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of fairs. You can sit on a bench and read a book. There's always places that sell like coffee or crepes or different things like that that you can snack on. That's why fall time is great because you can have a little hot chocolate by the pond with
Yeah.
something to read.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah. So it's called a wood, but it's actually a park.
Yeah, it's so there are parts of it that are woods, definitely. But when you get there, you're not going to jump into the woods. No, that's not how it is. It looks like a park at the beginning. There's just, I don't know, benches and it's like really just walking like dirt and floor that you can walk on. And then there's trees and plants that are planted. There's areas that have ponds, and then later on, yeah, you have the woods if you want to get a bit into that. I wouldn't recommend. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend getting into the woods, but like the more open spaces, definitely.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You know how you were mentioning crepes a little bit. I want to know like about some of the dishes that one should try while they're in Paris.
I love snails, so I'm definitely gonna say you should try snails and have an open mind about them because they're really not that bad. And then just more open-minded dishes. We can definitely think as far as snacks like the crepes or the gaufre. Gaufre is like a chubby crepe, a pancake, like a waffle. I'm sorry, it's a waffle, a big waffle that they can like put powdered sugar on. That can be really good. Then you have giflet. That's also a winter dish from the center east of France, but they do it a lot in Paris too. It's like potatoes and cheese, like a bunch of stuff, a bunch of calories, really. And if you're staying at an Airbnb and have the opportunity to use an oven, definitely what French people do, they buy a baguette and they'll buy brie cheese, so camembert, really, and they'll put it in the oven. You put it in the wood box that it comes in. You just take out the plastic and you put it in the oven, you close it, and you put it for 5 to 8 minutes and you take it out. It's all liquidy and you'll just use the bread to dip into that. As far as meals, there's a place called L'Entrecôte that's really hype right now in Paris. So you pay, I think it's 20 euros, and they give you meat just sliced with a lot of parsley and butter juice, the same juice are snails. If you like that, you'll probably like snails. But then it comes with fries that also has parsley, and it's really good. Then there's mussels. Mussels are really good. I like mussels. There's like orange mussels. I don't know, like the black and orange little shells. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but like little creatures of the sea. They boil them and put different sauces, like white wine sauce. That's my favorite.
Those were like really great options that you were sharing, like a lot of different types, savory as well as sweet options. So that's
Yeah.
really nice.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
What about moving around in Paris? What is a good way to from one place to the other?
I would not recommend taking an Uber unless like it's your only option and you have a bunch of suitcases. It's really expensive. Taxis are going to be more expensive. I would say to download the app RATP, which is the metro app. You get the subway, all the information about it. You can just go and instead of paying 5 tickets and getting 5 tickets that cost like about almost €2 per ticket, I think it's €1.90, at least last time I checked. That's how much I had paid, and that's already expensive, so I would get the day pass, and there's some that are like 48 hours or 72 hours, like that. If you're not staying, for a whole month and you don't wanna get the whole month membership, you can definitely get, like, the 72-hour ticket that you can just reuse every time, and it'll be much cheaper, much, much cheaper than taking a taxi or an Uber.
Okay, yeah, that sounds cool. Like you can take a based on the number of hours that you're staying, if it's longer than probably like a month kind of thing. But you get this
Yeah.
pass using the metro.
Yes, you enter the subway, and right there you can buy the ticket from a machine, or there's also people who work there. A lot of times they can sell it to you. Yeah. The machine might be nicer to you than the people.
Yeah. But about places to stay, what neighborhoods within it can get daunting with the various districts. Something is closer to the Eiffel Tower, something is closer to another thing. What would be a good place for someone who's visiting Paris for the first time to also pick as their neighborhood, looking for stay options?
Definitely. And I'm actually opening up my phone to make sure I know all the areas right. Because I don't want to say a number and then somebody end up in a really horrible part. I'd say the first, third, fourth, everything that, like I mentioned, goes along the Seine is usually going to be like your safer places to stay. So that would be the fourth, third, first, sixth, fifth. All the first ones are going to be the safer ones. Yes. And I was actually confused. It's the fourth the one where the Mahe is, not the 13th. Good thing I checked, but no, around all those areas, the first I'm looking, it's really pretty and it's right next to the Tuileries. And then a lot of people live in the seventh. It's pretty nice. The seventh is also quite safe.
Have you stayed at any properties while visiting Paris, or have you mostly put up with family when you go?
So I stay in an area. I've stayed in two different areas. One is called Issy les Moulineaux, west of Paris. It's still there, but it's right on the border. And it's really just residential there where I stay. I've also stayed in an area called Amandé, which is actually next to the woods of Vincennes that I had mentioned. I have a pond, stuff like that. And I've also stayed in the let me just check the map because I know where it is, but I don't. It'd be around the second arrondissement. It was near Les Halles. So Les Halles is second or fourth. So it's between those two. And it's nice. It's calm. It's safe, not really calm.
Did you stay at Airbnbs or hotels in these locations, or were you when you were there long term, you were renting out from the residential? And
When I lived there, I lived in Sermondy. But every time I go there, I either stay with a friend who lives in Les Halles or my aunt in Issy les Moulineaux. But I know there's a lot of hostels near Montparnasse. So it's Montparnasse is where you have the big kind of palace looking building monument. And you also have the Moulin Rouge right next to there and all that. So it's not the safest neighborhood, I would say, to stay like just a bunch of girls at night out in the street. I probably wouldn't do it. But I would probably take an Uber back to those hostels. I visited friends staying in those hostels, and the hostel itself was nice. That's just an area that has a lot of hostels, but just keep in mind that if you're coming home at night, you'll probably want to take an Uber home. Even though the like metro's working, that walk to the metro wouldn't be the nicest for girls.
so it can be a budget option, but not
Yeah,
the safest at night. You have to be
yeah,
cautious, or you need to be moving in a group, maybe.
yeah. You just have to ignore people, and if they want to talk to you, you just don't talk to them.
Mm.
That's really all.
Yeah. Okay. But you do know friends who stayed in that area.
Yes, I had a group of American friends. I went to university in Lyon, and they went from Lyon to Paris for a couple days. I was going to be there visiting family, and they stayed at this hostel, and it was really right in front of the Moulin Rouge, almost not too far away from there. And it was a nice hostel. They didn't pay that much. There were a lot of people from a lot of English speaking people, I felt, but we had taken the subway back and it was quite funny. I was there speaking French, helped a little bit, but I feel like if it would have just been my girlfriends there speaking English, they might have gotten spoken to a little bit more.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Kiara, what would your tips be for someone planning to visit Paris for the first time? Like how to navigate this big city that everyone dreams of going to, but maybe the language can be challenging or there are other issues that can crop up. So, what would your tips be for
Navigate it as much as you can walking, and it's a city that you can walk everywhere. So prepare to walk. If not, get comfortable with the subway. If you don't know, you can always ask. That's always happening. There's always tourists taking the subway who always ask. That's not going to be something that's abnormal, something you should do if you're like wondering or a bit nervous about it. Besides that, most people do speak English if you don't speak French. If you speak another language like Spanish, maybe speak Spanish. It might be nicer because for some reason French people don't really like the Americans so much. So if you have something that's not an American accent, you'd probably do better. And I just say that because sadly, speaking English sometimes the French would say you're not French, you're just one of those Americans. So I'm really saying it from things I've lived, but try to walk everywhere, try to use the subway, speak to people who are your age. They're usually open minded. Younger people generally accept you into their group and let you go out with them quite easily, especially if you're meeting them like in a bar environment or something that's people get a little bit more loose, like a park as well, like at a fair. That could probably be a place to talk to people, but try to talk to people to know what it's like to be in Paris from a Parisian point of view because you can always go on TikTok and look at the best places to visit in Paris. But those places, they don't last forever. The hype is just for a moment. And there's things that are generally cool that you should really try in Paris and get to see maybe on even Google Maps the best reviews. That's the way I've gotten to see a lot of nice cities. I went to Lille, recently in the north of France, and I did a lot through Google Maps, and that's how I saw what people from there really like. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's a really good tip. Things can get crazy on TikTok and like Instagram and all. When people hype up locations and they're not really, it's short lived or it's not really matching up to the expectations and reality.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But there are, of course, some great places if you're looking for museums or things like that. Definitely look at TikTok. But restaurants, that's where you never know. It can be like great, like the video suggested, or it couldn't be that great. It really
Mm.
depends.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Anything else first-time travelers should know?
There's a lot of scams in Paris. Scams have gotten really developed. And this will be like from somebody making you want to sign a petition. And if you sign that petition, once you sign, you need to pay something. So don't sign petitions. Don't let people put bracelets on you or gift you something. Nothing's ever free. And there's a lot of scams, especially in the monuments and the places that tourists want to visit. That's where you're going to find those people most. They usually come in groups. They usually have something for you to sign as well. So if you see somebody in a group trying to get people to sign for something and they don't really look official, like part of an organization, really official, don't do it. There's a lot of pickpockets in the subway. Keep your things on you at all times. I feel like it's any really big city in New York, you take the subway, it's probably going to happen too. If you're not used to big cities, keep in mind to take care of your phone and your wallet.
Yeah, that's really sad though. When tourists are visiting the monuments, that's where they're being targeted. But I guess part of
They
life.
know where the tourists are, right? They know who doesn't know about the scams. So that's sad, but yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm almost nearing the end of my questions for you, Kiara. I wanted to know what's your favorite thing about Paris? Like, what's something that makes you keep going back? I know that you have family over there, but other than that,
Besides that, yes, I would say I love shopping. So definitely when you can go in and shop in Paris, that's in all of France, that's where you're gonna find the most things. So it's something that I love to shop there, especially during sales times. Besides that, I would say there's really nice bars or just places to like we mentioned, stop and have a coffee or a little snack, a lot of terraces. That's something you don't really find in all the cities of France, right? That's something really Paris that you'll find all these terraces with chairs facing the street and people watching is a great hobby. If you sit and people watch, you'd almost be French. That's an activity I love going to cafes, bars, restaurants, or museums. Some museums can't miss, like the catacombs or the Musée d'Orsay or the Musée de l'Orangerie.
Yeah. What's your favorite place to shop? Like, since that's a huge part of why you want to go back.
Yeah, a lot of outlets actually on the outer skirts of Paris. That's where you're gonna find the best deals for brands. And I can't think of a specific one, but if you look up outlets in Paris, that's where I would go. In the Marais, you find a lot of independent things that are really cute. No one else is making them, so that's the only place where you could buy it. And really nice jewelry, like fantasy jewelry. It doesn't have to be like really expensive jewelry and clothes like that.
What would be a good item for travelers to pick as a souvenir, apart from the usual like magnets or something that's evidently very touristy? Is the lane that you were mentioning where the independent stores are, would that be a good place to pick up a souvenir to remember your trip by?
Definitely. And also maybe there's an area called Châtelet that has all these secondhand stores. And I feel like if you find something that, is from Paris, it doesn't have to say Paris on it. Like the designers maybe from France and you find it in one of those places, it's something that already had a life in that city. And ended up in Paris and you're taking it from Paris and wearing it somewhere else. So I always think clothing is a good option. Secondhand clothing is great because it's already had a life. And if you found it in that city, who says it didn't live in that city?
Yeah, that's a really great idea. Yeah, that you find probably some designer clothing from Paris and it's a secondhand. Firstly, yeah, it had a life of its own. And secondly, yeah, you're also thrifting and being a little bit more sustainable. So that's really
That's
cool.
right. Yeah. Really, yeah. You're hitting all the spots. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's probably cheaper as well. So,
Yes. A lot of times. There's a place called Kilo Shop. That's probably the place that wouldn't be cheap because it's piped up and you pay by kilo of like how much it weighs. So that can also be nice, but you really need to look through there. And if not in that area, Châtelet, you just have all these secondhand stores. It might not be designer, but it's cute stuff. Yeah.
yeah, that's one great, yeah, suggestions and tips that you shared to us. So, thank you so much for joining me, Kiara. It was great talking to you about Paris. And I wish you all the best in all your adventures and hope you become like a globetrotter that you want.
Thank you so much, Ananya. That was really nice of you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And it was great being here. Thank you.
Bye bye.